everybody, and welcome to the As You Are podcast. My name is Leslie Vander Gheynst, and I'm the founder of Ensō Coaching and Consulting. And we are here today for another shiny episode with our shiny coaches.
So
Libby,
shiny.
I feel so shiny.
you are shiny.
Thank
Very
you.
shiny.
I've been doing more moisturizer.
Adam,
hopefully less shiny.
Kathleen, great. Beautiful humans.
Thank you.
We're all here together.
We are all here
But
together.
there's one person on the hot seat today.
The real treat.
The
it is a real treat.
It's a real
It's a real
treat.
treat.
So
Use
boring.
Spotlight, please.
Oh, you guys
It's
have
the-
such great stories.
It's the treasury, Leslie.
Okay. Yep. Mm-hmm.
The treasure, Lesler.
Lesler. Lesler the treasure.
Spotlight upstage
No.
right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Oh, goodness me.
We're going to find
Here we
out
are.
all the things about Leslie today in our coach's spotlight. We're shining the light on.
Going
her.
deep.
Going deep.
Going
Our
in deep.
Grand
Great.
finale.
Oh, yes, the
of
grand-
our
Oh,
quadrivium.
Yes.
Yes.
of our what?
Of our
Quadrivium.
Your like
Our
vocabulary is always
quadrivium.
very impressive.
Probably misused. But
It's fine.
I
You know
know.
what?
what
There
are
have been
words?
a couple of times you've said that.
I've never been a part of a quadrivium before, and I couldn't be more thrilled.
Hold on. We've all been part of the quadrivium this whole time.
But I didn't know that I was a part of it. So now that I know,
Welcome.
I'm glad to be here.
Awareness.
Yeah. That's
It's
half
that
the
awareness.
battle.
Awareness.
Was this-
We have new language.
Was I just coach?
Isn't that what we all talk
Yeah.
about? Yeah, we just need language
Yeah.
to tie to our awareness. So
Yes.
thank you, Adam, for
Mhm.
educating us.
Yes.
Per usual.
Yeah.
I know, truly.
Okay.
Man.
Should we start with Leslie from, I would say the beginning, but based off of
The womb.
the womb,
Yeah.
I almost want to start with, where do you want to start?
Yeah.
Oh, God, I don't know. I mean, I think one of the things, like the things that we've been talking about is like the things that have kind of made us who we are a little bit. And I would be remiss without talking about the fact that I have a Korean mother and a military father. And part of my life and my upbringing was like moving every 2 years of my life from kindergarten. I stayed in, and we lived in very different places. We lived in Hawaii for a little bit of time. We lived in California. We lived in Japan. We lived in Korea. And, and I think so much of who I am, good and bad, probably comes from the fact that I constantly had to adapt to new environments with new people, with crazy different backgrounds. And that has been, I think a little bit of a foundation. When you're very little and you go live in, an area of California that is very, very diverse, and then you kind of grow and learn and get to meet these people, and then you have to pack up all your things. Like I had a major breakthrough with my coach fairly recently when my grandfather died, because my grandmother and grandpa lived in Boyd, Texas. It's like tiny, tiny town, maybe 800 people, very, very small in Fort Worth area. But it was like the place that we always used to go back to. And I had a breakthrough. My grandfather died, and he and I weren't super close. I was more close to my grandmother, and she had passed, several years prior. But I think it was like the stability piece, that my grandfather, or like the idea of where my grandparents lived, was kind of a thing that I didn't have a lot of. Outside of like my family was very stable, but like we moved and there was no location that was a very stable thing. And I had a little bit of a breakdown, and like I was talking to my coach about it, and I just like remember like always having moving stickers on everything, because we moved so much, like we wouldn't even take the stickers off, right? Like, so you'd be like sitting down and eating, you're like, and it was like subconscious, like I didn't even think about it, but like moving stickers on everything. So when my grandfather died, like there was like a little bit of the stability that was lost, and I didn't realize like how maybe jolting it can be for a child to like constantly be shuffled around and moved. And so then when I had a chance, I went to college, I stayed put. Like I didn't, I didn't move, and I stayed in Austin, and this was like where I wanted to stay. And like I even, kind of have a little bit of like, do we move, or, how much stability do I want to keep for my kids, and all that stuff like kind of exists. But all that being said, when you live in these different areas, you just like me, you're kind of forced to be around a variety of different humans and with different backgrounds and different socioeconomic classes and cultures. And, I feel like it has caused me to be a curious person when it comes to humans. Naturally, I think has also caused me to be an adaptable human where, like the people that I'm around, like I want to make them feel comfortable and I want them to feel welcome. And so that's something that's happened. And I think, that's a good thing, and it can be a bad thing too when it's overused. But like, that has been such a huge part of, like, I guess the makeup of who I am, It's like being in all those different areas and locations and moving and getting to know new people. And yeah.
Did that affect your dreams as a young child?
Hmm.
I mean, it is hard for me to answer that because I don't know that I had a lot of dreams, I mean, I think I had these like happy thoughts. It's really funny. Like when I would get scared, I was a scared child. I was always afraid I was going to be buried alive. That's such a weird thing for a child to think of, but I was constantly like, somebody's going to get me and bury me alive. That was my big fear.
All right.
And when I would have
Now I know what I'm getting for my birthday.
a nice coffee.
Yeah.
I know it's like that. I think I
can hook
had
you
that
up with that.
Yeah.
until that, there's that like scene in Kill Bill where she like breaks out of the coffin. I was like, okay, well,
Okay,
I know what I need to
doable.
learn.
Doable.
But like I would, be scared a lot at night. And like one of the things that brought me a lot of joy, or like the happy thought that I always had, was like picturing me as a prima ballerina on stage, which I like never was I never was a dancer, but like there was something about like this image, like I would picture myself as like a ballerina dancing on stage. And it was like the thing that always brought me joy. But when you say dreams, like I didn't have a lot of dreams until, I probably got into high school. Like I didn't have, I wasn't like, I want to be this person or whatever. So maybe yes, right? Because, when you're constantly adapting and you're constantly moving, like it's hard to
Picture your
get
future
and
like,
still for a
Yeah.
moment. You know what I mean? Yeah.
So when did that change?
Yeah.
High school, you said.
High school. Yeah. It's funny. I took my first drama class when I was a freshman in high school, and my dad was a music guy. He's like a tuba player.
Of course.
And when I ended up playing, I played trumpet in fourth grade. And he was so excited, and he would play records of Maynard Ferguson, who is this like, I don't know if you guys haven't listened to him, you should, just because he's like plays ridiculously high, like out of control high trumpet stuff. And he would play me these records, and he's like, you've got to like, go do this and like be a really amazing trumpet player. And I played trumpet like all through high school, all through middle school, and even all through college. But I took my first drama class, and I was like, oh, this is really interesting because I can use some of these tools that I had. And again, subconscious, like I don't think this was a conscious choice, but like when you meet people every 2 years and when you're like, kind of like adapting and you're like getting to know humans from different areas and, and walks of life and backgrounds, like it's easy to kind of ingest that and then portray it as a character or whatever.
To pull from.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. There's just a lot of like human experience there. And I was like, oh, this is kind of fun. This is very interesting. And I had no exposure to any theater until my freshman year of high school. And that was in Korea, by the way. So I was in a, small military school at the time. And when I came to the United States, my junior year of high school. So again, like what a great time to move.
I can't imagine.
Just like, you finish your sophomore year of high school, and I'm in Korea. So there were a lot of biracial kids like me, and, and I had some of like my best friends, and we still keep in touch. Thank you, Facebook. One of the very few things that we're appreciative for is like we get to stay connected with some of these people that I haven't seen in, 25, 30, 40 years, however long it is.
Did you say 40?
Yeah. How old did you just age yourself to? Like,
not your actual age, but beyond.
Yeah.
But beyond. they were like me. And so I had a very like tight knit community, and like my friends all had Korean mothers and, military fathers. And so it was like we were all like the same, and we were all brought up the same, and we all had the same experiences. And so to go from that and then to move to like Texas, Texas, was a very very different environment. Like the people there really loved football, and I love football. Like, you guys know me, I'm like a huge football fan, but like they like really loved football, and they were like Cowboys and like FFA stuff. And I was like, what is this world that I'm living in? And again, my grandparents were from Texas. Like, I've been in Texas, but that was like culture shock major for me. But I decided to continue to do theater, and like I did one act play, and like, did UIL, and did a little bit of, drama and what's it called? Drama interpretation and like poetry.
Forensics.
Yes.
Yeah, the forensics competitions. Did that, and then did all the marching band stuff. And so I had my little like close-knit group of humans there. And I remember very specifically doing my senior year, we did one act play, and we did a show called After the Fall. Is Arthur Miller play. And I just remember very vividly we were doing a competition, and like the curtain dropped and we were about ready to go, and then I remember seeing the lights dim underneath the curtain, and I was like, I think this is like,
I like
this is where I'm going.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, that was like the first moment. And I think headstrong, and similar to you, Kathleen, where I told my dad, I was like, I'm going to go do theater. I don't know exactly what that looks like, but I'm going to study theater. And I think I remember like my narrative was, I'm going to go to New York and be like a financial analyst and do theater on the side.
Excellent.
Well, what? Like financial analyst? Like, that's not necessarily my cup of tea, but that was like the thing that I said I was going to do. And decided to pursue theater at UT. And at the same, so that was kind of maybe where like the first dream, I guess, happened for me. Funny thing was, I ended up, and I don't know why, but like I ended up auditioning for the marching band at the University of Texas. And I don't know why. Like I always liked marching band, but I was never like, yes, marching band. Because there are some people who like really love marching band.
Sure there are.
I never was, but I went and auditioned for the band, and I have like so many thoughts. I can't even get my head straight. But like there was such a little bit of safety in like, these are my people, like my band people. And so maybe part of it was like, I'm not going to join a sorority. That's not really like who I am, even though I did join the band sorority, but that's a different story. But like, I wanted to have like a little bit of familiarity going to the university. Yeah, exactly. Going to a big school like the University of Texas, and like, again, going and pursuing theater, which I had only probably had a good solid 2 years under my belt. So I had a little bit of imposter syndrome kind of going in. And the funny thing was, I like, look back now, hindsight's 2020, like the marching band experience for me, I think was like very much a testament to just maybe like how I think tenacity has always kind of been a thing for me, which is like, I auditioned. I was placed as an alternate, which means I didn't get to march the very first game, but they had us as like understudies, essentially, as like band understudy.
Band understudy.
Band understudy.
Understudy.
And every week I had to challenge somebody. Like, I had to pick somebody from the trumpet section. Well, and I'll there's more to this too, which is kind of funny, but I had to pick somebody that I'd be like, okay, I'm going to challenge Kathleen this week. And we would go like before band practice, and we would like literally in front of all the section leaders and the band directors have to like make our way onto the marching band.
And then they would sit out.
And then they would sit out. They would be the alternates. And I did it for the first, probably like the first, I think two football games. Like I tried and I didn't get it because it's hard to get in. It's easier like once you're already in, if somebody challenges you that, usually you're okay. And then I finally got in probably the fourth game. And then, like it's funny because I was also a trumpet player and there were 72 trumpets, 10 women. So it was like a male-dominated instrument. And like I can make jokes about trumpet players are all like cocky and they think they're the best because they all sing the melody or they play the melody. It's like Sopranos.
Yeah.
I'm just kidding.
It's true.
No, but it's kind of a thing. Like when like the trumpet players, like male trumpet players, have a lot of confidence, and so when you're a woman trumpet player, it's like a smaller group. And I ended up, from that time of like making it onto the marching band, like ended up becoming like a new man advisor, which was like all the freshmen that were coming in. We teach them about the history of the marching band and like get them involved in the traditions and get them paired with like a big person and like kind of be that like person that these like new freshmen coming into the band could go to if they have questions. And then became the vice president of the marching band to then becoming the president of the marching band. And then was also a section leader, which is, says a lot when you're like one of the women who I was not the best player by any means, but was, I think, more about leadership and, more so than it was about like how good of a trumpet player I was. Yeah, exactly. And I think that's like kind of, that's like a little bit of a theme, right? Which is like kind of underdog. And then you kind of work your way into becoming something, a little bit more impactful, I think. Yeah. And, and the funny thing is like, again, hindsight's 2020. I look back and like my band friends, I probably have some of the best friends that I had from that, experience. They're all so fucking smart. Like my band friends that graduated from the University of Texas, there's like chemists and like aerospace engineers and like people who like founders of these like AI tech companies and like all this other stuff. And, I don't know, there's just something about like music and something about,
absolutely.
That like space where it's competitive and, you have to master a craft. Sort of in this marching band. So it's not like,
you mastered it. I've seen your moves. Yeah. I have seen her marching band moves. She mastered it.
Anyway, it's just, so it's like, it's like those little things. It's, I mean, I think maybe part of it, and again, like I'm just speaking from the hip now, but maybe part of it is just like kind of making a decision and going with it and allowing it to kind of shape and mold who I am and, how I've gotten to this point, and I think that's like that's a theme. It's just like a yes,
When speaking of male trumpet players.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, I know.
Do you know? Yeah.
Life story.
Do you know any?
I'm just very curious to know. So your husband is a male trumpet player.
Yeah.
But is also,
I was not referring to him.
But
wink.
But is also a coach. What is that dynamic been like? What is, I mean, it's so interesting because you both went into things that are passions.
Yes.
And you still have the passion for the like other thing. Right. And you both continue to somehow make it work to be involved in your first It's just very kind of rare, especially with two young kids. Yeah. So like what makes that like work?
Oh my gosh. I don't even know, Adam. Like I don't even, I mean, I think the thing that I'll say about John is that who's my husband, by the way, is that he has been a big influence in my life in the way of just, he is not apologetic about standards at all. And I think me being somebody who's very apologetic about asking for anything, because again, this is like my natural instinct is to make everybody feel comfortable and to be hyper vigilant and all of that because of probably my background and upbringing, to have somebody who is the complete opposite of like, no, like you tell them that you don't like your steak and it's not yummy. Well, I'll just be like, it's fun. It's okay. I'll
eat it. I love raw meat.
Do you know what I mean? Like he's always been like, you can't go into an audition, like, and I'll be like, I went to an audition and the piano player, never Adam, by the way.
Yeah.
Never.
The piano player, like I tried to set the tempo and it didn't go well. And then I just tried to sing it and then I like screwed it up. It was awful. And he's like, never take that never take that shit. It's your audition. Like, you stop them and you tell them what you need. So he's always been like the advocate for like, it's you have to set the tone. You have to like set the standard. You cannot apologize for wanting something great in your life. And he's always been somebody who's very supportive of like risks that I want to take or like the things that I want. And so like I can say that very specifically about him. You know, we had this convergence in our life, which is, it's really funny how it all happened. He had gotten a adjunct professor gig at IUPUI, and again, he's a doctorate in music performance. So when I talk about me playing the trumpet and him playing the trumpet, very, very different. But he had this adjunct professor job in Indiana. And at the same time, I ended up getting offered a job at a children's museum in Indianapolis.
I remember this.
Yeah. And I remember I talked to Kathleen a lot because she was in the
know
museum.
the story.
Yeah. I had been offered a job at the Indiana, I'm sure I can say this. I don't think it's weird. But the Indianapolis Children's Museum had offered me a position as their director of interpretation at the time. And so the job was essentially to help them create environments and spaces for the children to go into with like live performances of like the exhibit space. So it was very kid focused. And I ran a children's theater company for a while. And then it was also overseeing, they had a small children's theater in the space as well. So I was offered the job. I had actually accepted it. And then John ended up getting, and this was right at like 2008. So the real estate market was, and I was working for a real estate firm at the time. Yep. Real estate market was crashing. The world, this is when the home loans and all that stuff was a mess, right?
Yeah.
Mortgage industry was a mess. And I was offered that job. And then John was offered a job in the business sector as an operations person at the company that I was working at. Very, very big job. And we had some conversations around like, do we want to continue down this path of like where we go to Indianapolis and we go do complete art-based stuff with a little bit of the business side on it? Or do we come back to Austin and focus on, the business world and then continue to do the theater and the music stuff as a passion? And we had to, one of the questions that I asked myself was, will I continue to be as passionate about it if it is my full-time job and something that I don't get to be creative about and don't get to make choices about and that's going to be driven by a board? I don't know if that is going to be as fulfilling for me as like really getting to choose those things. And that was ultimately why we kind of ended up coming back to Austin and going down that path. So it's just like, it's, I don't know, Adam, like I think part of it is, is asking the question, constantly asking the question of like, what's important? What is so important to me beyond the like, I think it would be cool to like do that, to go work at this, it was the largest children's museum in the country.
Yeah.
To say I had this like really great job with this really big team and was like doing the stuff with like an area that I don't think a lot of people get to like use. I studied theater for Christ's sake and like, in college and to actually like have a job in it. Does that make sense?
100%.
Yeah.
I want you to talk about your awesome career that you've had and just, well, I think mostly coming from, I know that your background in theater, you had this children's theater, you and I worked together for a very long time. But I think, what are some of the big, as an executive, a female executive, what are some of the big things that kind of theme-wise, what stood out to you? What are some of the big takeaways that you've had? And what are the things that pushed you to say, this is what I would like to, I don't want to, go be a chief people officer somewhere else. I'm going to do my own thing.
Yeah. I mean, it's very weighted. I mean, okay, so I do have to just like pause and say, the funny thing is I'm 25 years old, like Rick Smith, who is running Second Youth. I was.
Yeah.
Just kidding.
I am now.
Right
Size
now.
is.
You are now.
We're all
Some
25.
Benjamin
Surprise,
Button.
friends.
Yeah.
I was 25 years old. Rick Smith was moving, and he asked me and Julie, he's like, do you guys want to run this theater? And we're like, yeah, we do. I had never run a business, never run a nonprofit, like knew nothing about it. And it was, again, just to like, okay, let's go. We're going to figure this out.
And I had
We're
no
gonna-
idea you had done this, by the way. I'm learning this right.
Oh,
in
it's
this
so
moment.
good. Yeah.
It's a great, and like
They're great.
I was just so proud. We were so proud of what we did. And then we had to close doors because funding stopped. Surprise.
Yeah.
And that's just what happens to theaters. And now I know, I mean, as a business person now, again, I would do things very differently. Like we would not rely on a single source of funding to continue to keep the doors open. And that was a mistake that we made. We had a collaboration with the University of Texas. We did a summer program with their MFA program with the Theater for Youth. It was really, really great. I'm super proud of what we did there. I came to Keller Williams as a front desk person.
Yeah.
So it was like I had just graduated from college. I like ran across an ad, I think on austinjobs.com at the time.
Oh, let's go.
Get it. Oh my God.
Applied.
Austin Jobs.
Austin Jobs.
I would have seen something in the Chronicle.
I mean,
Yeah.
it was amazing.
You
Yeah.
circled
yeah.
She
I
saw it in
circled
the
an
papes.
ad.
She circled an ad.
I
in
did,
the
and I
papes.
came in, and the woman who interviewed me, her name was Sharon Gibbons. I still talk to her. She's
Yeah.
amazing. Sharon was like, she was like, I want you to come, she's like basically offering me the job. And she's like, I just want to tell you, if you were in the marching band and was a trumpet section leader and like dealing with those like men, you can deal with real estate agents.
Yeah.
That was kind of like her.
I remember she used to tell that
foray.
story all the time. Like the reason that she hired you was because
Yeah.
she was like,
yeah.
oh, I knew. If she can deal with all those people.
Yeah, real estate agent's not a problem. And so, and we were at the corporate headquarters, we weren't working with real estate agents directly, but it was, a little bit of like wrangling and all that.
Yeah.
So I started at the front desk, and within a year I had found this opportunity to do HR, which, like, again, I would never just be like, hey, let's do employment law and like help write SOPs. There was like nothing
Yeah,
about
that
that.
goes
That's like
back to the dream, right?
Yeah. As a young child, she dreamed
Was
of
envisioning.
what kind of SOPs can I. This is just
I know. Could you imagine?
no.
And the funny thing is, as I started to learn more about HR, there were so many parallels with theater, right? Like there's like
Yeah.
employee relations where it is like getting to the core of like, what is your challenge manager and what is your challenge employee? And then let's find common grounds and like have a conversation so that we can move forward, right? Or it's like, we have an open position. We've got to go find that person. It's like casting. Like if you just like really, and then there's, there's so many things about like HR as a whole that have a direct correlation to like theater and acting and auditioning and all that other stuff. So it was really funny because so I could find those parallels, and like very quickly, pretty quickly, I ended up being the HR director still before I was 30. I was the HR director of this like large firm, and again, just like moved up the ranks, and like I was a problem solver naturally. So I would see like, okay, this is an issue that we're having, or our employees feel this way, or, we're not hiring the right types of people. Like, what are the things that we need to do to solve that problem, and like be strategic and proactive about it? And I think that is what lended itself to me kind of continuing to grow in the ranks. I will say I had two very influential women leaders in my life at Keller Williams specifically, Mary Tennant and Mo Anderson. Mary Tennant was the president when I was the HR director, and she was there when I kind of moved into the more executive level role. And, one of the things that was so influential about her is that she always protected the team. Like she made it her job to make sure that nobody was ever harmed by, whimsical decisions that were being made. And, and I think it happened, and she had a reputation for being hard, right? Like she was definitely direct, but also my mom was a Korean woman, and like she was also very direct. And so I was like, I can
get
handle
that.
this.
Yeah.
She's just basically like Yoonsha. But like, this idea of like protecting people, and like not, there were so many moments where she did these like deeply heartfelt things for people, would like somebody would be sick, like she'd be sending food for months, or she'd show up when there was like a natural disaster and like push through barricades, literally. To make sure that people had the supplies and stuff that they need. And nobody ever fucking knew. Like it was all quiet, and she didn't want anybody. I mean, and she was so humble about it, but it was just like, this is what we do. Yeah. And so she was a huge influence on my life. And then Mo, Mo was like a standards person. Like she had high standards for what she expected out of the people and the leadership that surrounded herself by, but also such a champion and soft. Like, they used to call her the Velvet Hammer. I know that has multiple meanings, but
I don't know
we're going to talk about
Yeah.
Don't Google it.
Yeah.
Okay.
But
I'm just a little innocent baby over
He
here.
doesn't know. Being's hard. Yeah.
But what it was referred to as the Velvet Hammer was that she was like soft, but still tough and firm. And like she and I, worked together on like culture things, and she's always been a strong influence in my life. And, I think those two women kind of being the center of that organization with a lot of other male executives was very helpful in kind of driving how and what I felt like I needed to be in that organization. And at the same time, I was also just kind of I think going back to like, what dreams did you have? I don't know. Like, when I was working as an executive, like there were things that would happen that I would just brush off my shoulders because I wasn't a super dramatic person. So like something would happen, then I just be like, oh, okay, well, let's move on. I'm like not, bothered by it. But as I started to mature more and like think more about what was acceptable for me.
I'd also make the case, of course, the like diversity of opinions and experiences also make us stronger.
100%. And again, like going back to what we were talking about earlier about just like being able as a performer, being able to kind of like pull in the richness of resources. Yeah. Like the same thing occurs in business. The more we're allowed to be around, a fruitful environment of thinking and
diversity
being.
Of thought.
And yeah, exactly. It just causes us to have more resources to pull from, which allow us to be more effective, and that's the foundation of it. And I feel like we get caught in, in this like quota thing, and we're not seeing what the true opportunity is. And again, like I when we lived in Japan, we didn't live on the military base. And across the street from us was he was a Japanese businessman, and he and his wife spoke English. And they used to bring us Japanese dishes. They took us to Lunar New Year celebrations and like really would take me under their wing. Like I used to go with them by myself, and they would show me like different things about the Japanese culture. And again, like as a 13, 14-year-old girl, you don't recognize how just having that like additional step of depth around experience of another person's being allows for just a little bit of a like, well, the Japanese do it this way, or like it's just another way of being, and it's not bad or wrong. It just causes like us to. It caused me to think very differently about humans unconsciously, right? And so if that helped me unconsciously make different decisions about how I interacted with humans, how could not having that unconsciously cause us to,
Yeah.
So anyway, I didn't answer the question. I was just tangenting.
We're taking it.
I'm
sorry.
Whatever answers you give.
Can I make like a little observation?
Yeah.
So, I mean, I really loved this question of dreams, and, like would ask that for you moving forward. But even before that, the observation is around values. Like, I think to me, you are a shining example of someone who like really puts in the work to understand their values.
Yeah. It's really funny because I remember arguing with my dad about like protecting animals at a very, very young age. Like he brought me because he was in the military, so he used to travel around. I remember he brought me like a chinchilla doll. It had like chinchilla fur on it. And I was like, is that real chinchilla? And he's like, yeah, but they were raised on a farm so that people could make like chinchilla jackets or chinchilla animals. And I like lost it. Like I was like, you would kill an animal so I could have a stuffed animal as a very young child. Like I struggled with just like unfairness. And so like some of it was like natural, but my upbringing, like my parents, would teach me like, it's okay. Like that's what the business is and that's how things were. But like I struggled personally with that. And I can name like 50 other things that like I, had differing beliefs as my father around some of those things that we still banter about today.
Yes.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And it's just like, but I don't know where that comes from. I don't know if that's a choice or if that's just, I don't know. But, yes, like I think the values are important. And I think it's because I did for a while like veer away from my values. I think I was trying to fulfill something that somebody else told me that I should be and or do, that I started to recognize like I'm out of alignment. I don't even know, do I like HR at all? And the answer was no.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I had spent a 20-year career like being a chief level HR person. And the reality is I liked the leadership piece of it. That is a teeny tiny bit of it. And I recognized that nobody was going to hire an HR person in their organization to like support leaders and being like really good humans for the people that work for them. That was like not a thing, which is why this company exists.
Yeah. And I think that that's been a huge evolution, seeing the work that you've done on yourself, seeing you being there to, working alongside you when you were out of alignment with your values and seeing how you, what your life was like, how you showed up. No, she was brutal. No,
I mean, it was
no.
not.
One thing I will say about you, though, that it is in the same way that you talked about Mary Tennant, is you fiercely protect your people and your team. And that is something that you like always have done. And I think just goes a really long way, maybe long enough to make someone just completely follow you for her entire career. But the work that you've done on yourself, seeing you, what it was like when you were out of alignment and then really figuring out your values. And of course, becoming a mother, your values change, different places in our lives, and kind of watching you recalibrate yourself with the values that are true to you now, and founding this company has been like, I mean, truly just amazing to watch. And it has been such a cool evolution, and just seeing you really digging into something that you're passionate about, and also allowing time for artistic things.
I know.
Has been
that's been really, I mean, Adam, you were asking that question about John, and I think, one of the mistakes that I think I made when John and I started talking about like, do we want to have children and all that, was I was so afraid of having kids, because I was like, how am I going to do theater? Like if I have kids, I can't do theater because my job was so demanding. It was asked so much of me. I was always working late and, constantly had things on my mind. I was like freaking out every time my phone rang, and the thing that I realized after I left that organization, and again, it's nothing about them. Like I don't want to put them on them. That was me. I did that to myself. Was I would say I have to make a choice between like theater and kids. And the thing that's so funny is I left that job and immediately theater stuff started popping up. Like I got a call. I mean, I'm not kidding. Like a week later, from a friend of mine with Natalie George, who was one of our, she was doing a cabaret, and the friend of mine, Sadie, called and was like, would you like to be a part of this cabaret? And then Adam and I got to do that together. But I had not done anything in like 5 years or something. And I got to do this cabaret, and it was like, it was like the world was saying,
this is it.
Hey, lady, like stop making choices here. And then I realized I was asking the wrong question. The question was like, how do I make this happen? And since then, I've, things have popped up. Like Adam's, created On Tract, which has been a like really great opportunity for me. There have been other like theater things that have been like less commitment, that I've been able to do that along with our work together, along with still being able to be completely present with my kids. And like, I was just asking the wrong question, but I was convinced that there was not a way for that to happen. And of course, with not doing theater and not allowing that side of my brain to fire off, my thinking was shallowed.
Totally. I know we would talk about that all the time, just like being in the consistent rut.
And when I am being artistic, when I'm like flexing that muscle, my thinking is so much deeper. Like I'm able to see things so much more clearly because that's my creative, synapses. I don't know if it's a synapsis or not, but I'm gonna say it.
It's a quadric.
My creative space.
Yeah.
And so, that was like another.
Isn't that funny though? Like you got clear about your values and like who you are and what you want, and then all the things
happen, and then it's so easy to know what to say no to.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
That's that's the biggest thing is like, I mean, I had a big interview with an organization after I had left, like both of the companies before we started Ensō, and it was just so clear to me. I mean, it was one of those opportunities where you're like, well, I could just work this for a few years and then retire, but like crystal clear that
it was not.
They were out of alignment with what I wanted and what I needed for myself.
When I think it's also when you put things. My voice is coming back a little bit.
Yeah. Welcome.
Thank you. I think it's when you put things out there, because when Sarah and I started Ontract, a large part of it was because we saw that there were people who were so massively talented and passionate, but that maybe couldn't commit to like a 3-month run or whatever anymore. And so I think there's just this, I mean, this is the word that gets overused the most, I know, but synergy of maybe there's a reason it gets overused when it's right.
Yeah.
And I think that not being afraid to put those things out into the world.
Yeah. Right.
And I think all three of you do that. I mean, like just putting it into the world. And then like sometimes solutions can also come from manifestation.
Yeah.
Exactly.
The word too I would bring into this is being surprised and open, right? Like there was this expectation that it would be X, and hold on a second, it's Y.
Right.
And also the theme of, I mean, in your case of, I don't know how to do this. How do we make it work? Oh, you want me to run a children's theater? Cool, let's do it. Oh, I have kids and now you're asking me to do this show and I have my coaching business. It's something I want to do. Cool. How do we do it? So I think that it's that, that piece also that's really kind of carrying you through of like, you'll figure it out.
Right. And I do think that is like that's a real thing, like I wouldn't call myself somebody who's like a super aggressive like person, but I'm definitely well, if I set a goal, I'm going to do it.
Yep.
Right. Like,
totally.
And I think that's like, again, another strength that can be overused because sometimes you're just like, you're just going and going and going. And then you're like, when do I need to say no?
Yes.
Right.
You've shown that you do that though, too.
Now.
Yeah.
No, I know. And so then I guess some of that then becomes the like, what do you do to make sure you're not just on that hamster wheel?
Yeah. Well, it's being really clear about what my values and what my goals are. Because that, again, it is like, how much harder do I push to move towards this thing that could or could not happen? And at what point am I out of alignment? And I think it's a very easy yes or no.
So I know you know this, but for our listeners out there, how do you make sure that you're in alignment
with my values? I mean, I just ask the question. I mean, I'm looking at them all the time. Like I have them, they're on my phone, my values are on my phone. And so it's a constant reminder of like, okay, am I in harmony? Am I being creative? Am I, is this pulling me off of, harmony, right? Like, for example, I choose the word harmony, not diversity, not whatever, but like harmony is a word that is very important to me. And when I start to feel out of harmony, then I can pull back, right?
I love it.
Yeah. Thanks.
On
Thanks,
the phone,
babes.
as you are.
As you are. It's true.
Which is a mess, but some days it's okay.
I don't know what's not a mess. If I'm going to be honest.
Yeah.
It's true.
Relative.
As we are.
As we are.
In the way.
I want to run with Adam's early question and this notion of dreams still. What are your dreams now? Like running this company, there is, if I think of the transformational change that I think is so necessary for so many people, we've talked about this, right? Like just this idea of how do I move against maybe what is natural for me so that I can
make choices in where I want to go or where I want to be in my future, and allow for the people around me the space to have the same experience. When I think about the impact that we can have working with leaders who then have their team members under them and their families, if we can continue to inspire those leaders to be more curious, to ask more questions, to be more open to different ways of thinking and being, and they can take that with all the people that they lead, and then those individuals can do that for their families and their children's, then the impact is so much greater. And we've started to kind of go down this route. And that's like what makes me so happy and like inspired about this company is like, you know, if we can get leaders to just think a little bit differently about the impact that they have on the people that are around them. Like we work so much, right? We're in the workplace so much. And if like those individuals can really be different and show up differently and be inspiring and allow people to be who they are and like welcome them for that, that impact really speaks to me.
Yeah.
And, you know, and I want to continue to grow this thing. I want to add more coaches. Like I want us to be a large organization making impact and staying like really close and connected to that. And, you know, and then for me to continue to like have my like real balance, you know, the balance of being able to do shows and spend more time with my kids and, you know, be with my husband and be with my family and all of those things. Like that is very important to me. You know, I didn't do the thing where I moved to New York after I graduated. I didn't go to LA. I didn't do any of that stuff. And, you know, the funny thing is like, I told John, I was like, you know, and he's still an amazing musician. He still writes. He's phenomenal. And I was like, you know, we could retire and have money, then go to New York.
Yeah.
And be old, but like do whatever we want.
The
because
competition is less steep than. Yep.
I am not competing with like 20-year-old
Oh my
with
gosh.
long legs and blonde eyes, but I'll be blonde
Those
eyes.
Nope, blonde eyes, baby.
Wow.
You said it. You meant it.
Yeah.
But like older ladies,
Hey. That's right.
feels like a thing I could do, you know?
Yeah.
So I don't
Name,
know.
here she
That's,
comes.
you know, that's it. I just like, I think it is just like really like being an example for like my kids and these people that we work with. And I just want to do good stuff, you know?
I want to like call out what is, I don't want to be like a spade because that doesn't feel right. But like you are in a room right now of people who are so inspired by you
Truth.
that you have led to what their path is.
You were so sweet.
But that's actually what this is. We are not just here. We are here because of you and how much we believe in you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Thanks for saying that.
We're both cheering.
Oh, there she goes.
But it's
Look
true.
me in the eyeballs.
It's true. This is
Look me in the eyeballs.
Yeah.
Thank you.
It's
Thanks for saying
evidence.
that.
Yeah.
Thank you. It's important work like this. You know, I think this is life-changing work, and doing it in a place that's accessible, like work, versus maybe in a place where maybe, you know, people might not be exposed to it. It feels like it has a trickle effect to really, and that's, you know, why our mission is what it is, you know? So, but thank you for saying that. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
I love you guys very deeply.
Love
Obviously.
you too.
It makes a big difference. I mean, I think getting up in the morning and being like, I mean, of course, everyone gets up in the morning and sometimes you're like, I am tired. It's going to be hard to human today. But I think that knowing, and I think all of us have had kind of a being somewhere where you don't want to be and the difference of being somewhere that you do want to be and that feeling of being in alignment. And it's just been a huge change and started by you, boo-boo.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. Really appreciate it.
Get me in the
Love you all.
eyeballs.
Nope. All right. Well, thank you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you on so many levels.
Yes.
Yes.
Love you all.
We love you.
Okay, do the platform thing. Love you guys.
Yeah. Follow us on all platforms.
Yes.
Do the platform thing. Also, leave a review. Have we ever asked that?
Oh, yeah.
Why
no, we
not?
haven't.
Leave a
Leave
review.
us a review.
Yeah,
I'll
leave
write
us
you
a
a
review.
note.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, if you leave a review, I don't know how to do this yet, but I'll send you a note.
Yeah, there you go.
You're going to get a
I
note.
love that.
From Kathleen.
Yeah.
The
From
Kathleen.
From the
No one
Kathleen.
else.
Maybe via carrier pigeon if she can't figure it out. But
Then I would.
you're going to get it.
old to new. That was Kathleen's theme.
Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you guys.
Thank you.